Warhammer The Horus Heresy, Eidolon The Auric Hammer by Mark Collins. Chapter 10. The Heart of All Things. The command center was already dying around him, racked by the systematic shock of the invasion and the violent spear-tip assault of the 16th. Black iron and rough stone had formed the walls and corridors at first, in the earliest days of strife. Time had sharpened the structure, shaping it until it had become a winding labyrinth, the only guides being the dull metal glyphs that crawled along the tops of the walls. Gothic had replaced them in places, but it had been a hollow effort, half-born and fleeting, now to be shunted aside and burned clean. Eidolon strode through the corridors as though he already owned them, the air thick with the smoke and stench of dying men. Around him, the cogitators were failing, forcing out their last susurrus of binaric expressions. He let his fingers drift across them, displacing the ashes. The corridor was braced by plasteel beams, straining as the fortress died above them. He could already scent the weakness infecting them, the rigors that would bring them to ruin. The heart of the palace militant, of the great fortress city, the heart of all things, was close around him. Its dimensions had not been fashioned for the Astartes' physique, nor had conquest altered them to fit their liberators. Eidolon ducked his head, his augmented bulk filling doorways as he moved ever closer to his target. Crimson emergency lighting flooded the passageways as readily as the smoke, lending it a hellish light. It reminded him of ships during void combat, ailing and lance-struck. Worlds died slower than ships, but just as intimately. Eidolon had fought in many different circumstances. Across the galaxy's span, worlds of bitter cold and burning sand. Dead worlds peopled only by ghosts and murdered dreams, stations and ships of the Imperium and its alien enemies. It was all the same in the end. For all the variety the galaxy offered up, there was only the familiarity of war, the same refrain played out over and over, from terror to the edge of the unknown, and back again. A senior wallsman rounded the corner, streaked with soot and blood. Brocade glimmered dully on his shoulders, a mantle of authority. He started when he saw Eidolon, alone and monstrous, towering above him, head scraping the ceiling. Eidolon hunched low, providing the man a better look in the low red light. His smile was bloodied in the gloom as he lurched forward, like a revenant or ghoul from out of legend. The man fired. One bolt round went wide, and the other ricocheted harmlessly off one of the immense pauldrons. The third and fourth hit him in the breastplate, and he staggered backwards momentarily. He laughed as the pain ebbed through him, warring with the flow of pleasure. He raised his gun and fired, barely even bothering to sight the shot. The capricious weapon bathed the enemy soldier in a wave of garish green light. The Radshot's volatile atomics disintegrated his flesh with a crackling flash, searing his shadow into the wall behind him. Eidolon moved forward, past the bleak memorial, rounding the corner and striding into the beating heart of the command center. New klaxons were sounding at the rad burst, harsh alarms shrilling while hydraulics whined in the walls, and the blast doors struggled to close in response to the toxic discharge. Denied power, contradictory message flooding their systems. The Great Bastion's defenses were sluggish. He stopped and bent low, reaching up with a free hand to hold the ailing door up. Pushing it back into place as he emerged into the command center proper. It was already mortally wounded. Bodies lay piecemeal, scattered about the chamber by furious chainsword swipes. Heads had been impaled on the men's own bayonets, thrusting up from the top of the cogitator consoles and hololith tables in the grim tableau. Those who had prepared such a display were still here, idling in the ruin they had crafted. 6 warriors of the Sons of Horus stood in a semicircle, their weapons held ready, with another at the center of them, 3 paces ahead. He turned as Eidolon entered, removing his helm and tossing it casually onto one of the nearby benches. It knocked against a disemboweled body, making the entrails slip into the ground in a wet, unwinding rush. Gerog Shara looked at Eidolon with open disdain and spat to one side, letting the acidic saliva sizzle against the steel flooring. "Lord Commander Primus," he shouted. "I'm surprised you made it through without all your pretty little captains." "Always pleased to surprise you, Captain," Eidolon replied. Resting his hammer against the edge of one of the last working cogitators, he pressed down, indenting the metal of the machine, milking frenzied data screams from its suffering machine spirits. He looked around the slaughter. "Efficiently done," he said with a smile, though it lacks a certain artistry, I find. We've seen what passes for your art, hissed one of the Chthonians. He wore markings of a chieftain, and even helmed, palpable loathing bled from him. Ornamental fangs glimmered on the faceplate of his helmet, forming a wolfish snarl. Mirror coins hung from chains around his pauldrons, amidst the carved kill markings. Gangish scrawls had been beaten, etched and painted into the metal, rendering it in almost Damascene swirls of brazenly displayed allegiance. He was a living talisman, a totem of distant and besieged Chthоnia. I would know the name of the one who questions me. Eidolon sighed. Anangal, the man growled. Chieftain and champion of the 16th, beloved of the War Master. I'm sure you are. Eidolon drawled. As beloved as I am by my own Primarch. Stop taunting my men, monster, Garrick said, glowering at Eidolon. I won't be able to stop them if they decide to put you in your place. Any warrior of yours that raises a hand against me shall lose it. Eidolon promised. I have no compunction against reducing any of your fine soldiers to red mist and entrails. There won't be enough left to make sport of, let alone art. Petty threats from one of Fulgrim's dandies, Anangal spat. The War Master. The War Master is not here, Eidolon said. Neither is the Phoenician. We are simply abandoned sons, stranded by circumstance. What comes next is our own affair. He threw his arms wide. And behold, the initial thrust of the spear, claiming the enemy's heart while I can only look on. He paused. While my men clear the cities and take their spoils. Slaves, material enough to propel us onwards to terror itself. Spoils we will all share in. Garrick said carefully. But of course. Eidolon agreed with a slack smile. All shall be needed by the bitter end. Our fathers shall not fight alone. All strength shall be required. It is my honor and my privilege to bear the third millennial onwards towards our final confrontation. That is what good leadership exists for. He turned the hammer over again, tapping it against the cogitators. Already my favored warriors are gutting the enemy's defenses and breaking their resistance. He made a show of looking around. I had hoped to take their surrender personally, but you seem to have made that decision for them. Garrick shrugged. Didn't seem worth the words. It rarely is with you bold Chthonians. Eidolon tittered. Do you think your War Master will love you more for your untrammeled violence? It doesn't matter if he does, Garrick said. We will go to him blooded and unbound. His warriors, his champions. We, he struck his gauntlet against his breastplate, are the elite, the War Master's own. I would scour this world to ashes and piss on what remained if it pleased him. You still think yourselves so mighty? Eidolon asked with genuine interest. That you stand above the rest of us, loyal, traitor, all subordinate to the Ascendant Horus and his sons. He is the War Master, Garrick growled. He will be Emperor. Shall he? I hadn't guessed. Eidolon trilled, bemused. It was enjoyable to toy with the Sons of Horus so. There were many braggarts and jokers amongst their number, so enamoured with their own coarse wit. There was room for many a humbling. Pride aplenty before the fall. Eidolon's blue tongue lapped at his lips, savouring the thought. Rabble. The thought breathed from somewhere. Mongrels. Yes, they are, he agreed. Then caught himself. He had become complacent. The whispers had become ubiquitous, so ever-present that he could almost mistake them for his own, rather than the poisoned promises of the shattered king. He fancied he could see the thing, drifting through the chamber, idling at the backs of each of the Chthonians, broken and burning, whispering forever. Eidolon watched claws of black glass and pale fire close on Garrick's shoulders, poised, waiting, like a servant, ready to crown their master. The repeated click of active vox broke him from his thoughts, and he turned his gaze back to the Sons of Horus. They had suddenly gone tense, back straight, weapons up. Garrick's stance bled frustration and sudden violence. He had already scooped up an axe from where he had laid it, beside the ruined torso of an Imperial commander. His other hand went suddenly to the bolt pistol at his belt. His arm came round, aiming directly at Eidolon. Treacherous bastard, Garrick hissed. All around him his men began to fire. That was, I felt more like an interlude chapter than a lot of the things we did. I think it was all about Eidolon's exploration of the war and his kind of perspective on what he's seeing. It's interesting. I think we're about to see the consequences of Malachris's actions. I think he's gone a little bit cray-cray as the whispers have started to set in. I think it's I love how I kind of love how the Sons of Horus are like just so easy to goad. They're just like, I feel they just seem like they're very punchable, but you can't punch them unless you've got a good reason. And they're very easily tauntable, and they really rise to it. I can't believe they make up the bulk of the Black Legion. Like, I think maybe they outgrow that from when Abaddon takes over after the Horus Heresy. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. But then again, they all still think... The Black Legion still thinks itself better than all the other legions and traitor warbands, so... I'm not sure. It's interesting. I can't wait to see the next chapter. We'll see it soon. That was quite short, so the next one should be up a lot quicker than the last. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. And I will see you guys tomorrow, hopefully. Mwah.